Hello students, welcome to the lecture on the British postmodern poet Carol Ann Duffy's Warming Her Pearls. Warming Her Pearls. This is a poem about suppressed and veiled queer desire, intimacy and expression in a relationship which is unequal, right? Because this is a relationship between a mistress and a maid that we are talking about. And if we try to speculate in terms of the era in which we can contextualize this poem, we can speculate that it is most probably the Victorian context. And it says that this is a poem which is written for Judith Radstone. So Radstone and Duffy are friends, and Radstone is a political figure and a well-known person in the literary arena. And this particular poem, Warming Her Pearls, was apparently inspired by a conversation between Duffy and Judith about the practice of ladies' maids during the time, concealing their mistresses' pearls beneath their clothes to be warmed by their skin for the purpose of increasing the luster of the pearls. So after they had a conversation like this, Carol Ann Duffy was inspired to write this particular poem, right? So let's try to have a reading of this first. Warming Her Pearls for Judith Radstone. Next to my own skin, her pearls, my mistress bids me wear them, warm them, until evening when I brush her hair. At 6, I place them round her cool white throat. All day I think of her, resting in the yellow room, contemplating silk of taffeta. Which gown tonight? She fans herself whilst I work willingly, my slow heat entering each pearl, slack on my neck, her robe. She's beautiful. I dream about her in my attic bed, picturing her dancing with tall men, puzzled by my faint, persistent scent beneath her French perfume, her milky stones. I dust her shoulders with a rabbit's foot, watch the soft blush seep through her skin like an indolent sigh. In her looking glass, my red lips part, as though I won't speak. Full moon, her carriage brings her home. I see her every movement in my head, undressing, taking off her jewels, her slim hand reaching for the case, slipping naked into bed, the way she always does. And I lie there awake, knowing the pearls are cooling even now, in the room where my mistress sleeps. All night, I feel their absence and I burn. Okay, so you see that this is a poem which starts conveying the proximity and intimacy between the two women through a shared object. And the shared object is these pearls, right, which the maid wears in order to warm them, in order to increase their luster. So it is through these pearls that you see the proximity and intimacy between the two is conveyed. It says, next to my own skin, her pearls. But in the immediate next two words, my mistress, through this immediate address of the poet, in terms of addressing the other, we see that the power dynamics in this relationship is very well established, right? Because the speaker addresses the other as my mistress, which conveys the fact that this is a relationship between a master and a maid, which is of course an unequal relationship because one is in a position of power while the other is the subordinate. And the speaker keeps the pearl necklace warm for her mistress while contemplating about her. But it is also through the will of the mistress that the speaker warms the necklace, which conveys a sense of veiled reciprocity to a certain extent as well, right? So though we can say that it is not explicit, excuse me. So though we can say that this, just give me a moment. Okay, so I said that the speaker keeps the pearl necklace warm while her mistress, for her mistress, while contemplating about the mistress, right? But we also have to understand that it is through the will of the mistress that the maid is warming the pearls as well. Though there is nothing explicit, there is no explicitly conveyed queer desire here, we can still say that there is a veiled reciprocity of queer desire and intimacy between the two in this act, which is described by the maid in a very intimate way. And we should also establish that it is only through this object and this act of warming her pearls that the queer desire and intimacy between the mistress and maid are expressed. Therefore, the pearls, we can say that the pearls function as a medium through which queer expression is conveyed. And then the next stanza says, resting in the yellow room, contemplating silk, and then continues on to say, slack on my neck her rope. So here the words, her rope is important. The fact that the necklace is described as the mistress's rope over the maid's neck further emphasizes and accentuates the disparity between the social classes and the power dynamics between these two. It establishes that this is definitely an unequal relationship, right? They are from different social classes, and therefore they have power dynamics. One is in the dominant position, while the other is in the subordinate position. And she continues to admire the mistress, saying that she's beautiful, and then she dreams about her in her attic bed. So the maid, therefore, you can see that now Duffy is painting a visual picture for us of the maid in her bed in the attic, while the mistress is dancing with tall men. So these two contrasting visual images again emphasize the social and power disparity between the two, right? However, you see that the speaker herself is not overtly concerned with it. Instead, you see her enjoying a sense of gratification and possessive pleasure over her own claim over the mistress. It says, I dream about her in my attic bed, picture her dancing with tall men, puzzled by my faint, persistent scent beneath her French perfume, her milky stones. So instead of being overtly concerned about the power disparity between herself and the mistress, you can see that the maid dreams of her mistress, imagining that her own smell has seeped through the pearls, which confuses the men who dances with the mistress. So through this, we see a sense of possession and claim staked over the mistress, despite her being surrounded by the male suitors. And we also see the maid, as I said before, enjoying a sense of gratification and pleasure through this kind of secret act which confuses her male suitors. And this also expresses how this is the only way through which the maid's queer desire can be conveyed, considering the power and social disparity between the two. And then the speaker continues to say, I dust her shoulders with a rabbit's foot, watch the soft blush seep through her skin like an indolent sigh. In her looking glass, my red lips part as though I want to speak. So if you look up a rabbit foot in Google, basically you find that it is a token, it is considered as a token of good luck in a number of cultures, in European, American, and even some Asian cultures. However, in this case, it is used perhaps as a good luck charm, and it is also used to dust the shoulders of the mistress. In a way, like the way in which this act happens, the way in which this act is described by Duffy, conveys the manner in which uh, how this act of dusting through a rabbit foots functions as a tantalizing through which the intimacy between the mistress and the servant is again conveyed, right? To a certain extent, we can say that there is a very nuanced and implicitly conveyed reciprocation of feelings and intimacy from the part of the mistress as well, though we mostly see the point of view of the maid here. And I say this considering the soft blush that seeps through the mistress's skin as the maid dusts her shoulders with the rabbit foot, right? And then it says that the speaker wishes to communicate. Her red lips fast, as though I want to speak. So the maid wishes to communicate, but the power and class dynamics between the two, considering the nature of the unequal relationship between the two, you see that the speaker is unable to communicate. The speaker is unable to assert herself, except uh, convey her queer expression through this manner, through these acts of serving her mistress, right? And it also conveys the suppression of queer desire between the two women as well, right? Considering the fact that queer desire is impossible to be realized, is impossible to be overtly communicated within this heteronormative Victorian context. I mean, we speculate that this is the Victorian context. So it conveys that the fact that the desire and expression can only be conveyed through the medium of the pearls, through this act of brushing the skin, and through this act of and through this gesture of blushing, right? Through very non-verbal and indirect means. That those are the only ways in which the queer desire can be communicated. And one of the very predominant reasons for this, as we can analyze, is the heteronormative social context. Within the heteronormative social context of the Victorian era, queer desire, a relationship between two women, would be something that is repressed and restricted and suppressed. So therefore, an overt communication and overt realization of feelings can never take place, right? And also considering the fact that their power dynamics are there, it also like further emphasizes the fact that this is not a relationship which can work, right? Which can be realized. Don't say work, which can be realized. That is a better way of putting it. And then through the final two stanzas, she says, she always does, and I lie here awake, knowing the pearls are cooling even now in the room where my mistress sleeps all night. I feel their absence and I burn. So the final stanza once again concentrates on the pearls, right? On the pearl necklace, how her warmth is dispersing from the pearl necklace into the mistress's room. And the speaker says that all night I feel their absence and I burn, which can communicate the suppressed and restrained desire, as well as intimacy on the part of the speaker, whose only means of queer expression is through this object or through this medium of the pearl necklace, right? So that is something we can understand through. Those are some observations that we can make with relation to this particular poem. And those are the only poems I want to cover through Duffy's poetry. Thank you very much for listening.